So good evening. We'll make a start. So first of all, allow me to present our apologies for the slight delay. It is a big venue, so getting from one end to the other can be quite tricky. But we're glad we can make a start. So Honorable Minister Joubert, few colleagues, Mr. Reddy and Mr. Hickey, our distinguished colleagues from Tanzania, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Kenya, all of the participants who've been able to join us. Good evening and welcome to our session this evening, whereby we'll be talking about blue carbon in nationally determined contributions, particularly focusing on implementation and scaling up of ambitions across the Western Indian Ocean. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Marie-Mé Jérémy. I am the Chief Executive of the Seychelles Conservation and Climate Adaptation Trust, and it is an honor for me to be with you as your moderator this evening. So we will get started into the program, but just in terms of establishing some context around our event today. So we are going to be looking a little bit at the Seychelles experience in setting the pace for countries globally, but also in our region, for including blue carbon in our NDCs. And now we also have the opportunity to a new program that have started through WIOMSA, supported by Pew Charitable Trust, whereby we will have the opportunity to upscale these efforts across the region. So in our event today, you will hear from the Seychelles Honorable Minister Joubert, who will deliver a little bit of a keynote address to speak about Seychelles' approach to tackling and including blue carbon ecosystems. But more so, we will see how we can scale up this work across the region and encourage countries beyond our region to also embark on this journey by sharing knowledge and building those regional connections. So with no further ado, it is my great pleasure to invite Minister Joubert, who is the Minister for Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment of the Republic of Seychelles, to deliver his keynote address. Minister.
Okay, thank you, CEO. I'm finally here after my navigation ability has been tested to the maximum, but I'm able to be here with you. And so it's a pleasure for me to be here, esteemed colleagues, our partners from Pew, Mr. Simon Reddy, Tom Hickey, and also our partners from Tanzania, Kenya, and Mozambique. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone here present this afternoon, good evening. It's not good morning, as I said when I came in. It is actually evening. So good evening to you all, and as I said at the beginning, it's a real pleasure to be here amongst our colleagues from the region and also from further afield. It is an honor today to address a room full of inspiring people with the common aim of working to conserve, restore, and manage our blue carbon ecosystems. Not so long ago, many would have questioned discussions on mangrove, seagrass, salt marsh ecosystems here at the UNFCCC. And now the full suite of blue carbon adaptation and resilience measures that they provide mean they are rightly acknowledged as one of the strongest examples of nature-based solutions. Seychelles, the country from which I originate rather, and also Marie-Mé originates from Seychelles, and also many of our colleagues in the corner there. Seychelles 2021 update to its national determined contribution to the Paris Agreement embraces the contribution of our blue carbon mangrove and seagrass ecosystems in mitigating, adapting, and becoming resilient to a changing climate, including commitments to map the full extent of these mangrove and seagrass ecosystems across our EEZ, to ensure protection of at least 50% of these ecosystems by 2025 and 100% by 2030, and to establish a long-term monitoring plan and include the emission values of these blue carbon sinks within our national GHG inventory, and also to ensure coastal planning and infrastructure are regulated at the national and local level to prioritize the consideration of blue nature-based solutions for climate resilience. So protecting and sustainably managing our ocean is not new to Seychelles. We are one of the first countries to designate 30% of our marine ecosystems in protected areas and have embraced innovative approaches to financing these efforts, including blue bonds and debt swap, and including the setting up of a Seychelles Climate Change Adaptation Trust. While more and more countries were recognizing the potential of their blue carbon ecosystem, Seychelles wanted to move beyond this, setting ambitious, measurable targets and establishing the kind of partnerships needed to effectively harness the potential of these ecosystems. And for Seychelles, these blue carbon ecosystems are just that, ecosystems. Carbon is just one of the wealth of benefits they provide for people, for nature, and for climate. And as well, the fish that sustain our people, or the clean waters, or the incredible wildlife that support our tourism industry, they are also as important as part of that ecosystem. And carbon is still an abstract concept, and it's still an abstract concept for people and for local communities, and that is one of the things that we set out to do, to make it shift from being an abstract concept to something that we appreciate and we understand the value of. In August 2022, we delivered on our first NDC commitment, becoming one of the first countries in the world to map the full extent of seagrass ecosystems across our EZ. And that's 1.3 million square kilometers. This map is hugely important. It provides not only the baseline against which to deliver on the NDC goals to protect these ecosystems, but it provides an opportunity to strengthen local research, technical and stakeholder outreach capacities necessary to implement them. But it's also important for seagrasses more broadly. In addition to storing significant amounts of carbon emissions, these ecosystems sustain vital adaptation and ecosystem services for frontline communities, filtering water, buffering storm surges, and providing nursery grounds for fisheries. We all know that almost 20% of the world's commercial fisheries actually depend on seagrass. And yet, globally, understanding the exact location and extent of seagrass remains a challenge. It is very difficult to protect something if you don't know where it is. And so, today, it gives me enormous pride to know that building off the experience of Seychelles, this same mapping approach is now being applied by our friends at Pew. Are they represented here today? I think they are. Oxford, Uyumsa, which is also represented today here, and others across the Western Indian Ocean. The waters of Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar will have similar maps by 2026 to support their own ambitions for their NDC updates. You may be wondering, dear colleagues, how Seychelles is doing in terms of our NDC commitment to protect at least 50% of these ecosystems by 2025 and 100% by 2030. I'm very pleased to say that we are not just on track, but we are ahead of schedule. 99% of our seagrass now lie in some form of designated protected area. That's 99%, and that's in 2024. Let me be very clear, though. There is still a lot more work to do. Designation doesn't mean job done. We have more work to do to continue strengthening local capacity, to secure sustainable long-term finance, to ensure compliance, enforcement, and also to ensure effective management. But we remain committed to leading by example. This year, we are working to develop a first national policy for blue carbon, which will work in providing clarity on the next steps that we as a country would take to manage these critical ecosystems. In addition to expanding the regional approach to research that I mentioned earlier, I am also delighted to see growing regional policy cooperation. Very recently, the 12 participating countries of Nairobi Convention met for the 11th COP in Madagascar. During these discussions, they agreed on commitments not just to strengthen their national efforts to protect and manage blue carbon ecosystems, but to cooperate to develop a shared regional strategy and action plan for conserving and managing seagrass ecosystems. You will be hearing more shortly from colleagues from Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique on their respective goals and priorities for delivering on these commitments. Our NDCs, of course, must support and work with governments and commitments at the local level. However, to drive rapid exponential increase in climate ambition that we need to see globally, they can also inform and inspire actions beyond our borders. Again, I am proud of the role that Seychelles is playing in this effort. Allow me to conclude with 3 lessons from the Seychelles experience. In just about every aspect, partnerships are critical. Seychelles has the ambition, but we are working with a whole network of international and domestic expertise to make it happen. Partnerships that touch on new technologies and cutting-edge research, technical policy support, community outreach, innovative finance, and even partnerships that contribute to the language of the Seychellois Creole. Secondly, these partnerships take a long-term view and sometimes go beyond the printed ink and paper. Working with SECAT, Pew, and Oxford was not a 12-month project that delivered a report. It spanned engagements with local communities and schools to the application of cutting-edge satellite technology. It has also focused on helping further enable local skills and capacities. Finally, globally reducing our emissions is not negotiable. The 2024 stocktake laid bare the scale of the challenge, but the value of these blue carbon ecosystems, or indeed any nature-based effort, should not be solely limited to the lens of carbon. The centrality of natural environment to livelihoods, homes, and biodiversity should not be lost. In Seychelles, seagrasses are important for many types of fish, the rabbit fish, for example, that we all depend on. And they are as important for those species as they are solely for carbon. I am proud that alongside many of you, Seychelles continues to take up the task of leading by example. Now is the time for us to go further and faster, and we look forward to doing that together. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think those remarks really kind of set the scene for the panels that I'm going to introduce just now. And in order for us to maybe hear how the lessons from the Seychelles have actually materialized in something tangible across the region, we do have an amazing panel that's going to join us. I have three gentlemen here. And I would like to call them up for the panel. So we do have Mr. Augustine Kenduyo. He is the Deputy Director for Climate Change Mitigation in the Kenyan Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry. And today he will be able to share the priorities and goals of Kenya. Mr. Augustine, if you could join us on the stage. We also have Mr. Luis Namucho. He's the Climate Change Advisor at the National Directorate of Climate Change in Mozambique. And he's a follower of emerging carbon market rules and regulations and financing processes, but also an expert in natural-based carbon solutions. Mr. Luis, if you could join us on stage. And finally, we do have Mr. Frederick Mulinda, who is the Principal Environmental Management Officer from the National Environmental Management Council in Tanzania. Can you please join us? So we're going to start off with you, Mr. Augustine. We know that we've spoken about this new program, and it would be good for you to tell us in a couple of minutes your respective countries' perspective about this project, but also in terms of the processes and the priorities that you have undertaking in rolling out this new project.
Okay, thank you very much. As you heard, my name is Augustine Kenduyo. I work with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry in Kenya. And we are in charge of climate change in the country. We are the ones that handle issues of the nationally determined contributions, NDCs. And currently, we have started developing our new NDC, that is NDC 3.0. So that's what we have already started developing that. And currently we are collecting information in terms of the priority actions. And the team that we are working with, especially the ones that are handling research within the Western Indian Ocean territory, and we are currently looking at those data to inform our new priority actions for blue carbon ecosystem. So our first NDC did not really have a lot of blue carbon ecosystem targets, priority targets, but our updated NDC currently has a number of blue carbon ecosystem priority targets, but it is mainly on qualitative actions. So it doesn't have really a lot of targets in terms of what needs to be done in terms of upscaling the blue carbon ecosystems, the mangroves and the seagrasses. The project that we currently have together with the Pew in the country, where we are looking at the kind of data that is emerging from the Western Indian territory. And that data actually is the one that is now assisting us as we develop the 3.0 NDC target. Because now we have new emerging information and the data that is coming as a result of the research that is currently going on within the Western Indian territory. And because of this new data that is coming on board, we are now able to even project further and see what kind of targets are we going to have and put in our new project, that is the NDC 3.0. So I want to just mention that we've had a lot of activities and programs running along the Western Indian region, especially on issues of qualitative information about engagement with communities to even expand on the size of the mangrove acreage, involvement of partners to support us identify activities that are geared towards improving the blue carbon ecosystems, especially of mangroves and seagrass. And because of that, we have been able to generate a lot of information. We have been able to generate a lot of information through that, those projects. And because of this information that we have generated, I'm seeing us having high priority targets coming to now the period of 2031, 2035, which is a new project we are working on. 2021, 2035 is our project for the new NDC for Kenya. And that is now incorporating the blue carbon ecosystem services in a more advanced manner than it used to in our new NDC. Again, our updated NDC, which is having milestone targets of 2025, will be actually reviewed. We are going to review based on the information that has come up again as a result of the research work going on within the blue carbon ecosystem. We are going to review our 2025, our 2020, 2030 targets, NDC targets, based on the new information that has emerged from the research that has been going on within the Indian Ocean. And therefore, because of that, again, we are likely to see an enhancement in terms of priority actions going into our updated NDC from next year, 2025 to 2030. Because our updated NDC is basically a single year NDC with milestone targets at 2025. So because we have milestone targets at 2025, then it means that by 2025, we will review based on the new information and data that we have received from the research work going on within the blue carbon ecosystem within the Western Indian Ocean. Then with this new information now, we will be able to review and enhance our blue carbon ecosystem targets within our 2025-2030 NDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. That's encouraging. It seems there's a lot going on, a lot of work done through mangroves, obviously, in Kenya. So now building that up with the work on seagrass. I look to you now, Mr. Lewis. Tell us a little bit about how things are going for you in Mozambique. How has the project been rolled out, but also what are some of the priorities as you move forward with the implementation of the project and also with regards to your NDCs?
Thank you very much for having me here, and good afternoon, everyone. So maybe I will start by taking you to a journey on how Mozambique has been getting ready to carbon market first, and the NDCs, and then the blue carbon, which is the let's say, the top of the iceberg we are now. So I've started this journey through Red Plus initiatives 10, 15 years ago. Through actually it was a soft cooperation, and then we got this support from World Bank through FCPF to develop our strategy and also the decree on the Red Plus. So by that time, we had all those carbon solution, natural-based solution on the same back, like the terrestrial forest and also the coastal forest. From that perspective, we start in 2020 the registration of a project from the private sector as well, from the other interested partners like NGOs or local communities. So in that sense, we received more than 10 applications just for the coastal area implementation project, what we call the mangrove-related project, which now we're calling Blue Carbon project. By the time we're calling Red Plus project, and we had other more on the terrestrial. So in general, we are talking about the 34 registration of expression of interest on the process. And from those in the mangrove, we happy to say that one has come to the redevelopment. I think you have heard it was a news, like global news, the first big project in Mozambique on mangrove, where it will cover about 26,000 hectares, but in phases. So the phase one now is to restore about 5,000 hectares of mangrove in the central province of Zambezi. So it will go to another province in the central area as well called the Sofal. It covers nearly 15 districts and involving about 50 different local communities. So based on that experience and information generated, and also the Article 6, we had to start moving ahead in terms of improving of our data quality on how is the potential for blue carbon in Mozambique, which areas of mangrove have potential for restoration or conservations. So we did those mapping through our MRV unit, which is based on the ministry, the one who support those registration of Red Plus and also the standard. So what we have get so far is the total potential area for recovering. We're talking about something like 150,000 hectares for potential in the entire coast, which is something like 2.7 thousand kilometers extension. So it's a wide, long coast. So what we're combining here is the potential of the mangrove forest to develop what we call adaptation, because Mozambique has been hit by cyclone like every year we know, and more than one cyclone, and it's getting worse and worse. So the idea is to restore all the, we call the buffer, where the mangrove plays a special role. And we're lucky to have a support from the World Bank to, let's unlock our blue carbon market. So the sisters developing a sound study is 80 pages. A document is, I think, is available. We can share, where it highlights where we could address more attention. So mangrove is there, but also they've indicated the potential for seagrass. And there is an organization like Ukuluru, who's now helping us to develop data on how potential is Mozambique in terms of seagrass development for carbon sequestration and credit emissions. So along with that, we are developing the framework. So now we are discussing how are we going to address those different types of carbon, because now it's good to indicate in the market the difference like between red, classic, and also the blue carbon. So now we're discussing if we are going to have a standalone decree on blue carbon, or will be improved on that red plus as we are discussing. and the decree will indicate it in the how those projects will be linked then to the Article 6, because most of them now are under the VCM frameworks. And given that potential, we're also revising our NDC. The initial NDC we submitted was in 2020, but it mostly a kind of wishing list. We're not really aware what was all about the NDC. We just had the ideas, the wish, we put information there, but because it was in conditional, so we couldn't. First, because of lack of the resource, but because also because of the connection between the reality and the information on the NDC. We concluded most of the information in there were lack of, let's say, clarity in terms of a database. So now we are deeply working on the information. We are running now, we call the stakeholder consultations to first of all discuss what priorities they see to be reflected on the NDC, and blue carbon is one of them. So we have a minister of we call the sea, water, and fishery, which is in charge of the mangrove conservation and also sea management. So those are in here, and they will be engaged on how information, which information they want to see on the NDC. What so far we know, it will be a significant part because of the value of the sector at the national economy, and with given the potential in terms of finance mobilization under those climate funding opportunities. So we are currently discussing with different partners. We hope to have the initial draft by first quarter of next year, and the final draft maybe by the third quarter of next year, which we intend to submit by the end of the next year. Thank you.
Okay, wow. Yes, that is indeed some encouraging work that's happening, and we look forward also to see how that builds into the regional work as well. Finally, we'd like to hear from you, Mr. Malinda. Tell us a little bit about what Tanzania is doing and how also you are building your priorities as you prepare for the next round of NDCs.
Thank you very much. And I have realized that blue carbon is gender blind. Yeah. Well, as she has said, I come from Tanzania and I work for the National Environment Management Council. That is the environmental protection agency for the United Republic, for mainland Tanzania. And we have a broad mandates, among which is carrying out environmental researches to advise policy development to the government. Tanzania submitted its first NDC in 2021. It was kind of a rapid process, probably to comply to the Paris Agreement, because every country was being pushed to really submit their NDCs. And our NDC has got a number of sectors recognized by Tanzania as most vulnerable, from agriculture to energy to waste management, and more importantly in this context, coastal and marine environment. The NDC is somehow ambitious. For the next 5 years, we need to have collected 19 billion US dollars to implement our mitigation and adaptation actions. And in the process of time, as we happen to review the NDC and discuss with key stakeholders, like in any other country in the region, we realized that there was a gross omission of coastal and marine resources that contribute to blue carbon. And, things evolve over time. We've started from probably yellow to green and now to blue terms. And later, the government began to see the need for inclusion of blue carbon. From the Zanzibar side, because we are a united republic, from the Zanzibar side, they much earlier developed a policy for blue economy. And in the mainland, I think we finalized the policy this year to show that we now have come to realize the need for incorporation of blue carbon in our NDC. Now, it was last year in Bonn, we met with Pew, and in this discussion, they expressed the interest to collaborate with us in carrying out researches to map the seagrass along the Tanzania coast, which stretches in the mainland, it stretches to nearly 1,500 kilometers, and that is enormous. And you can see how much of the blue carbon potential could have been left out without, mapping the mangrove and seagrass ecosystem in Tanzania to inform the NDC. So the 19 billion US dollar is probably understated because it doesn't really cover the whole thing that is incorporated in the sectors that we prioritize for NDC implementation. Therefore, we are collaborating with Pew to carry out that research to map seagrasses together with Wetland International. And at this point in time, NDC is undergoing a review, and the review process is still infantile, I would say. We are now carrying out stock taking, and I know that this process will also be informed by the NAP process. We have a project that supports the development of NAP, and that process will also support in the generation of data, which will again inform the review of NDC. And so this research will quantify the amount of seagrass and mangrove in the coastal areas of Tanzania, and we will know the potential for carbon, for blue carbon that we have for a more ambitious NDC. I know we are at COP29 and we have baptized it as a finance COP. Maybe that really echoes the need for more finance to explore the potential of our resources, add more funds to protect them, and state more realistically the needs for NDC implementation. And so that's where we are in a nutshell in Tanzania, as far as NDC is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Malinda. You have all skipped ahead on my questions, so addressed a lot more than I had anticipated. But I do have one more question before I open up to the audience to see whether there are some questions. You all know recently we did have the Nairobi Convention COP, and there is now this new decision that really recognizes the critical ecosystems, including blue carbon. So from your perspectives, what kind of opportunities can this present for us whilst we're doing this work in the region? What are some of the strong, I guess, regional approaches and policy that can be born from the projects and the data that is being collected at the country level? So maybe I'll start with you quickly, just your perspectives on that, Dr. Augustine.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think when you go back to look at the previous NDCs from 2015, blue carbon ecosystem was really not captured very well in quite a number of NDCs. Even us in Kenya, we never captured it. And until around 2020, when we were updating our NDC, that is when we captured. But again, we didn't have data during that time. We didn't have data to enable us really capture quantifiable data that we can really put into our NDC. And what we did was to create an enabling environment so that we generate more information about blue carbon ecosystem, especially the mangroves and the seagrass. So for us in the country, as we updated our NDC, we made sure that we have those qualitative data, like a statement like harnessing the potential of the blue carbon ecosystem. And in that, through our national climate change action plan, we were able now to go deeper and say, what is it? What can we do to harness the potential of the blue carbon ecosystem? That is when we now started looking at exploring carbon market issues through the voluntary carbon market to expand the area under mangroves and see how communities could benefit. Then in the process of implementing, we realized that we needed some policy documents. So we went ahead as a country and developed policy documents to guide the mangrove implementation programs. We also started developing the action plans as a country. So we have the mangrove strategy or an action plan. And based on that and the support from different partners, we have been able now to generate a number of data and information that is now guiding us to see more in-depth, to see in a more, in a bigger lens, the value of the blue carbon ecosystem in terms of climate change adaptation and mitigation. So with Pew and the research that's currently ongoing in terms of looking at what size do we really have in terms of mangroves and what is the potential that we also need to have in terms of mangrove expansion and even the seagrass and many other more information that is emerging as a result of the research work that is going on. Now it is informing us as a country that one, we also need to relook at our policies. So one of the things we are now trying to do again is to relook at our policies that will govern the blue carbon ecosystem. Now look at our current NDC again and see where can we enhance. Where can we enhance? So from 2025, next year, we are likely again to review our NDC based on the information that we have gathered. We are going to change our NDC targets for 2025-2030 in terms of blue carbon ecosystem. And then even more so, more information have been generated again by ourselves and partners that is now going into the current NDC 3.0. Because we are currently having stakeholder consultation and we are having sector teams meeting and generating information from the research that all other organizations have done and be able now to ventilate through and be able to come up with a highly ambitious blue carbon targets for our mangroves and seagrasses going into 2030, 2031. So that is currently what we are doing. So it is influencing, so whatever is happening is influencing our policy decision making, is also influencing our targets in our new NDC of 2030, 2031, 2035, and also influencing our review of the coming updated NDC from 2025. Thank you.
Okay, so it's good to see that those policies that are, or the decisions that are happening at regional level are influencing the uptake or mandates for actions to happen within country with regards to policies. So maybe I'll look to you, Frederick, to give us your insights on the question.
Yeah, thank you. I would say the greatest opportunity I'm seeing in this is we are looking forward to having a clearer picture of the carbon sequestration potential in the coastal and marine ecosystems, and these will inform the carbon trading opportunities that we have in Tanzania, as opposed to the, previously people were focusing only on terrestrial forests, but with a clearer information on the blue carbon potential that we have in Tanzania, we can attract more carbon trade from an informed point or standpoint. But as said earlier, because the government has already initiated the process of NDC review, this is an opportunity to have a more ambitious NDC, and already having a policy on blue economy. This research, this project is going to inform on the clearer policy implementation arrangements based on the information that will be gotten from the research. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Luis?
Thank you. Actually, I'll put it in joke. This thing of blue carbon Mozambique is kind of WikiLeaks. We're still digesting the information. It's huge information. Sometimes we don't even know if it's true or it's fake. So we're still like trying to capture it. That's why if you see all the carbon action we've been done, blue carbon was a site. Because for us, was no potential there. Although it's one of the major sectors in the country. We have our 60% of the population living in the coastal area, relying on fishery and other coastal natural resources for their subsistence. So given this huge light of blue carbon potential and its connection to the carbon credits generation, which in turn got significant market value, but also other opportunities in terms of non-marketable actions. Talking about Article 6.8 now, we really focusing on capitalizing this potential through the NDCs, because we know that the Article 6 is all about linkage between NDCs and the opportunity that the country has in terms of contributing to the global stakeholders. So definitely we have this big eye now to zoom in on this blue carbon. We have started with mangrove. We hope the start on the seagrass will also reveal the potential, and we'll need to capitalize that once. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have another 5-10 minutes, and we will like to see whether there are some questions from the floor to the panelists before we do the closing. So any questions, any takers? Okay, so we'll have 2 questions. We'll start with the gentleman in the corner there, and then we'll come to you. Aurelius.
Thank you very much. I wanted just to get a bit of some more insight from either of the countries with regards to, because these are some of the first steps that are being taken in the space of blue carbon ecosystems and blue carbon policies that are being developed. So in terms of some of the lessons learned, in terms of the key documents or key policy documents that are required for that you've already perhaps done for you to set up a robust and functioning, blue carbon policy framework. Some of the key readiness setups that are required, so that we begin to already understand what is required by a country to have a running framework. Yeah, so I wanted just to get some insights from the countries.
Okay, we'll take the other question, and then we'll have the answers from the panelists.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for a very good presentation that gives us a very clear picture on the NDC and some of the achievement that I can say are still in the process. So I mean, for both presenters, my interest is to know what is the main challenge. I mean, Mr. Engo has just touched a little bit when you talk about it, because it involves a lot of the local community with all this. You know, I have a little bit about the blue economy of Zanzibar, that they are forming community to make sure that the community are benefiting in one way or another. So I would like to know the local engagement and what the main challenge in dealing with the local people. Because at the end of the day, you know, I think you're from government, is from government. I don't know about Mr. Yengo. Are you from government too, or you're just independent? So the linkage now, the government, the local, the private, so that when you are now doing the integration of this long coastline from Sumbiji, you pass through Tanzania, and then you go to Kenya. You have to know how we can partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're going to start with the first question. Any takers from the first question with regards to, you know, lesson learned, but also looking at the key pieces that will be required in putting together the framework? So who would be brave enough to tackle that? Okay, go ahead.
Maybe I can start. As I said, blue carbon ecosystem to many of us is a little bit new. Remember that if you go to any office and talk about blue economy, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is fisheries. So you find in most cases when you say blue economy, then they'll say fisheries. When we talk about mangroves and the seagrasses, they're like, what is it for? So it's a new thing. So first of all, what you need in terms of policy is to ensure that you integrate blue carbon into your national climate policies and planning. That's the first thing you have to do. Because unless you have guiding documents that can support your intervention, it becomes very difficult. And before you do the policies and strategies, one thing you need to have, first of all, is information. Information. So from the research institution, you are able to get information, even to know the value of the blue carbon ecosystem, so that now you can develop your policies and strategies to be able now to tap into this new ecosystem. You're also dealing with communities. And one of the challenges that you are facing with communities is what is in it for us. Even when we are making these, I mean, we are protecting or expanding the mangroves, and what is it for us? So you must also be able to tie your interventions with livelihoods for the communities. So this is where carbon markets come into place, like what one of my colleagues here was saying. You have to explore alternative livelihoods that can support the communities in as much as blue carbon ecosystem restoration is concerned. Again, communities must be made to understand the importance, again, of this ecosystem. So you must be well equipped with information. So that when as you meet communities, they have to understand the importance of the ecosystem to their livelihoods, and therefore even be able to see the economic sense of them adopting the blue carbon ecosystem landscape. Maybe my colleagues can add.
Thank you. Exactly. Just adding in terms of the lessons learned through this, if you remember my initial intervention, I said we have even now included the blue carbon on the green carbon, which is RED+. So that was, I can't call mistake, but it was maybe a not strategic way, because now we need to make it clear, because it's different. We see in terms of even the standards, when you go to the methodology to calculate the carbon on the mangroves and seagrass, totally different from the other type of terrestrial forest. So we've learned that, and now we're reflecting on how do we come out of that. So that's why we're saying maybe we'll be having it as a standalone mechanism, so that we can capitalize the potential on that. The other lessons we learn on this process is that you need really to have a very, very, very strong data management system, because of the complexity on the process and the need of verifications. all the information put on the documents must be certified and validated. So now we even understood that blue carbon is not only about the above ground, let's say, biomass, if we talk to mangrove, but we also below ground, the soil carbon and so on. So it's a huge and complex mechanism to get data for validation. Otherwise, we'll have too much uncertainties on the information, and we know that it will be risky for us to get penalized from the verification when it comes to the global stock takers. So those are the lessons. So that's why we are going it carefully. We need to make sure that we understand what should be done so that we can start like allowing the implementation of project with the at least handle the risk on the process. Coming to the challenge in terms of community engagement, in Mozambique, we're a little bit lucky because we had the pilot Red Plus initiative, which, let's say, it focused more on the community involvement, especially on the Cancun safeguards. The major there is how communities are getting engaged, how the rights of communities are in place, and then we have developed what we call the benefit sharing mechanism. But also we're lucky because before the blue carbon, we're doing community engagement in terms of environmental protection because of those cyclones, as I said. So we've been teaching the communities to understand the value of the coastal forest, the importance of managing mangroves. So adding to that, we're telling them that a part of protecting it for yourself, it is a possibility to generate an additional revenues from the carbon generated credits. Thank you.
Thank you. And then maybe quickly just some final words, maybe and challenges from you before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think a lot has been said, but the biggest lesson learned is the fact that the issue of blue carbon was not taken in the NDC. That's a big lesson that we have learned to see the need for inclusion of the coastal and marine ecosystems in the NDCs and their potentials for carbon sequestration. But in terms of stakeholders engagement, the challenge, he comes from Tanzania, and you know very well that in Tanzania, you don't do anything without engaging stakeholders. You cannot be able to move on without their consent. But the biggest challenge is stakeholders at a grassroots level. Most of them, they don't understand this stuff. You have to really be insistent in educating them, but also coming up with alternative livelihoods, because if people's lives are not changed, they will not be able to take up the new insights that you give them to protect the ecosystem. It must go hand in hand with the improved livelihood. That is the challenge I see every time when we engage stakeholders.
Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists. There's a lot of lessons there, and I think there's a lot more potential for us to collaborate together, but also to bring that leadership across the region and beyond as we look forward to the next round of NDCs. To bring our event to the close, it's a pleasure for me to invite Mr. Tom Hickey from the Pew Charitable Trust, one of our key partners from the very beginning, and who's kind of responsible for bringing all of us together here today. So, Tom, over to you to wrap up.
Thank you, CEO. I'm not sure if I'm responsible. If I am, I'm sorry. Good evening. My name's Tom Hickey. I have a really easy job, actually, which is just to say thank you. So thank you for being here, for being part of this event. Thank you to the NDC Partnership for hosting us, and in particular, thank you to Seychelles government for their leadership over a long period of time now. I'm going to finish with just 3 quick thank yous, actually. Good things come in 3. So my wife says, which is a little worrying given that we have 2 children, but I'm going to try 3. Number 1, thank you for the leadership that your governments are expressing, are interested in. I think that's a wonderful thing for these ecosystems, full stop. They are some of the most productive, some of the most biodiverse, some of the most important ecosystems in the world, and we're still losing them. So any country that is willing to take concrete steps to protect and restore them deserves, I think, huge credit and accolade. The second thank you is thank you for the impact that is having, in this place and with other countries. As Dr. Augustine noted, in 2015, it was a fairly abstract discussion about blue carbon ecosystems. I remember being in Madrid in 2019, talking about the potential to include these ecosystems in NDCs. And to have a room here like this, a panel like this, is amazing. To be that far along is, I think, brilliant. It's where we need to be, but it's a brilliant step forward. And I think most importantly, thank you for letting Pew be part of that process. I think we've heard from the Minister, from CEO, but also from our panelists, there are common needs, habitat maps, integration with REDD+, financing, community outreach, but also there's a reason they're called nationally determined contributions. They have to account for national circumstances, and that's complex, that's diverse, that's difficult, and it's a fantastic thing for Pew to be part of and to learn from. And I hope that in 5 years' time we're sat here together with 20 countries with the same ambition and 20 times more learnings, because that'll be a wonderful thing for Pew to have been part of as well. So those are my 3 thank yous. I wish you a wonderful Tuesday evening, and very much looking forward to next steps with everyone in this room.
So just a quick photo with the panelists before we close. Stop.
Thank you.
Annie.
See you around. I'll go to your pavilion. Don't have pavilion this time.